7 people, 1 statement, and the K-pop world exploded within minutes. On Wednesday night, without a press conference, without any leaks beforehand, RM, Jin, Suga, Jhope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook simultaneously posted the exact same message on their individual Instagram accounts. Short message, massive impact. BTS announced they will not submit their music for consideration at this year's Grammy Awards. For a group that has spent years being talked about as strong contenders for K-pop's first ever Grammy win, this wasn't a casual decision. This was a statement. So what actually happened? Why would BTS, right in the middle of their biggest comeback since finishing military service, choose to step away from one of the most prestigious award shows in the music industry? And why are ARMY around the world largely supporting this decision instead of being disappointed? In this video, we're breaking down the full timeline, BTS's official statement, the Grammy CEO's response, and the controversy behind the new category that started it all. Stick around, because this is one of the biggest music industry stories of the year. Let's get the facts straight first, because a lot of headlines circulating online are causing confusion. BTS was not disqualified, not banned, and not blocked from the Grammys in any way. What happened is that all 7 members voluntarily decided not to submit their music for consideration at the 69th Grammy Awards, scheduled for February 7, 2027. The announcement came through identical messages posted on the Instagram accounts of RM, Jin, Suga, Jhope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook. In essence, they explained that they've decided not to enter the Grammy consideration process this year, hoping that their music can be heard and loved for what it is, rather than being divided by region or language. They also thanked ARMY and everyone who has always stood by them. Interestingly, they wrote this message in Korean rather than English, which is what they usually use for international announcements. Many observers see this as far from a coincidence. It's symbolic. It suggests they wanted this message to feel personal, authentic, and rooted directly in their identity as Korean musicians. The timing of this announcement wasn't random either. It came roughly a month after the Recording Academy, the organization behind the Grammy Awards, officially announced a brand new category called Best Asian Pop Music Performance. And that category is exactly where this entire controversy began. Here's how it unfolded. About a month before BTS's announcement, the Recording Academy revealed the creation of this new category, designed to recognize outstanding achievement in Asian pop music, including K-pop, J-pop, and C-pop, with meaningful use of an Asian language in the work. On paper, this sounds like a positive step, right? The Grammys finally carving out dedicated space for Asian music that has often felt overlooked at Western award shows. But here's where the problem lies. Most fans and industry observers didn't see this as recognition. They saw it as segregation, or to put it bluntly, a polite way of being pushed aside from the main categories. The logic goes like this. For years, when a K-pop song got nominated in a general category like Best Pop Duo/Group Performance, that meant the work was considered equal, competing directly against global pop acts like Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, or Dua Lipa. But once a separate Asian pop category exists, many fear Asian artists' work will simply get funneled into that box and rarely compete, let alone win, in the more prestigious main categories like Album of the Year, Record of the Year, or Song of the Year. In other words, instead of being treated as equals on the global stage, Asian music risks being viewed as a separate genre altogether, not unlike how world music historically became something of a holding category for non-Western music that rarely got a look from the major awards. Reactions from the wider K-pop community came quickly. Several other Korean musicians spoke out in support of a more critical view of this new category. Tablo, veteran rapper and leader of the hip-hop group Epic High, shared RM's post along with a comment essentially arguing that achievements within Korea's own music scene, like the success of BTS's Arirang, matter far more than validation from the Grammys. Bang Jungkook of the K-pop group BAP also shared news of BTS's decision with his followers. Even Korean-American actor Daniel Dae Kim, who hosts CNN's K-Everything series, shared the story, a sign that this issue had already spread well beyond the K-pop bubble and into broader conversations about Asian representation across the entertainment industry. Let's dig deeper into the full statement all 7 members posted. The core of the message was this: they've decided not to enter the Grammy consideration process this year. Their hope is that their music can be heard and loved for exactly what it is, without being divided by region or language. They close by thanking ARMY and everyone who has always stood by them. Notice the tone. They didn't attack the Grammys directly, didn't name anyone specifically, didn't accuse anyone outright of discrimination. But the message was clear. They were rejecting the idea that music should be sorted based on geography or the language it's sung in. This lands even harder when you look at BTS's actual history with the Grammys. The group first appeared on the Grammy stage in 2019 as presenters, handing her the award for Best R&B Album. A year later, in 2020, they became the first K-pop act to ever perform at the Grammys, teaming up with Lil Nas X for a performance of Old Town Road. Since then, BTS has racked up 5 Grammy nominations total, starting with Dynamite in 2021, Butter in 2022, the yet-to-come music video in 2023, and their songwriting credit on Coldplay's My Universe, which landed a nomination for Album of the Year. They even hold the record as the only group to be nominated 3 consecutive years in the Best Pop Duo/Group Performance category, a feat matched only by Maroon 5. But out of all 5 nominations, not a single win. 0. So when a group that has spent years knocking on the Grammys' door decides to walk away right at the peak of their comeback, that's not just an administrative decision. It's a bold and genuinely risky statement. Now let's talk about the context that makes this moment feel even bigger. This isn't just any comeback. This is BTS's return as a complete group of 7, following years of members rotating through South Korea's mandatory military service. Back in March, they released their 5th studio album, Arirang, which shot straight to the top of Billboard's main singles and albums charts, generating a massive global response. Right now, they're in the middle of their world tour Arirang, having just wrapped up the European leg with a show in Paris. They also performed during the World Cup final halftime show in the United States, a stage watched by an enormous global audience. In short, commercially and culturally, BTS is at its highest point since returning from hiatus. Expectations that they'd finally land their first Grammy win were running higher than ever heading into next year's ceremony. And it's precisely at this peak that they chose to step back. Think of it like this. Imagine an athlete who's spent years falling just short of the gold medal, finally hitting the best form of their entire career, with better odds of winning than ever before, and then choosing to skip the final because they disagree with how the competition itself is being run. That's roughly the weight of this decision. Of course, a decision this significant couldn't go unanswered by the Grammys themselves. Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Recording Academy and head of the Grammy Awards, eventually spoke out in an official statement. He said he was saddened to hear that BTS chose not to participate in this year's process, but as a fellow music creator, he understood and respected their decision. Mason then defended the existence of the Asian pop category, stating it was created to celebrate the depth, diversity, and extraordinary growth of pop artistry coming out of Asia. He added that more categories mean more opportunities for artists' work to get recognized, and that the intent was never to divide. He also made an important technical point. Submitting music under a genre category does not close off an artist's chances of still competing in the major categories, such as Record of the Year, Album of the Year, or Song of the Year. According to him, genre categories like pop, jazz, country, or Asian pop simply group works based on musical character, not act as a barrier keeping artists out of the top-tier competition. The Recording Academy also emphasized its commitment to continuing to listen to the global music community, working to honor and celebrate every artist whose music moves the world. So on one side, you have BTS, who feel this new category risks separating Asian music from the mainstream. On the other, you have the Grammys, insisting their intent was purely to expand recognition, not to limit it. Who's right? Honestly, this isn't a question with a clean, black and white answer. And that's exactly what makes this debate so compelling. Interestingly, this kind of controversy isn't new territory for the Grammys. Several observers have drawn comparisons to what happened back in 1989 when the Grammys first introduced the hard rock/metal performance category. The intention back then was the same as it is now. Give proper recognition to a genre that felt underrepresented in the main categories. But the outcome became one of the most controversial moments in Grammy history. The very first award in that category went to Jethro Tull, a progressive rock band best known for their work back in the 1970s, rather than any of the iconic metal bands that fans were expecting to win at the time. That moment is still cited today as a textbook example of how good intentions behind creating a new genre category can backfire, ending in a result that feels completely disconnected from the community it was supposed to celebrate. Will history repeat itself with the Asian pop category? It's too early to say for sure. But clearly, BTS's concerns, and those of a large part of the K-pop community, aren't without historical precedent. So how has ARMY actually reacted to all of this? Contrary to what you might expect, fans being upset about losing the group's shot at a first Grammy win, the response has largely been one of support and pride. Many fans see this decision as proof that BTS remains consistent with the values they've championed for years: representation, diversity, and rejecting the idea that music should be boxed in based on where it comes from. This lines up with messages they've delivered for years on stages like the United Nations and various other international forums about identity and self-acceptance. Some also view this as a statement of confidence. After years of fighting for recognition through what you might call the conventional path, meeting the standards and formats set by the Western industry, BTS is now in a strong enough commercial and cultural position to essentially say, "We don't need that validation to prove the value of our work." The momentum backs this narrative up. The Erarang album they released in March already proved their dominance on global charts without needing to wait for Grammy recognition. Their world tour has been selling out across cities. Their World Cup halftime performance was watched by billions. With achievements at that scale, plenty of people now feel that a Grammy trophy isn't the main measuring stick for their success anymore. What makes this story even more worth following is its potential ripple effect across the wider music industry, not just for BTS and the Grammys. A big question now circulating among industry watchers: will other artists, particularly from Asia, follow suit? If more major musicians start rejecting this Asian pop category for similar reasons, the Recording Academy could face real pressure to rethink how their categories are structured. This also opens up a much broader conversation about how Western music institutions have historically treated music from outside America and Europe. Over the past few years, we've seen other award shows introduce their own K-pop specific categories. The MTV Video Music Awards launched a Best K-pop category back in 2019. The American Music Awards added Favorite K-pop Artist in 2022. The Billboard Music Awards added 4 K-pop-related categories in 2023. On one hand, the emergence of these categories shows the industry acknowledging just how massive K-pop's global influence has become. But on the other hand, it raises the same question over and over again. Are these dedicated categories genuine forms of respect, or a subtle way of steering non-Western music away from competing in the main race? With this decision, BTS has effectively forced the entire industry to sit with that question all over again, whether it wanted to or not. So what does this mean for BTS's future at the Grammys? So far, there's no confirmation on whether this decision is permanent or limited to this year alone. Their statement specifically referenced this year, leaving the door open for them to submit music again in the future, depending on how the Recording Academy responds and adjusts its policies going forward. What is clear is that all 7 members remain voting members of the Recording Academy, a status they've held since 2019, meaning they'll still have a say in choosing winners in other categories at this year's ceremony, even though their own work won't be part of the running. Meanwhile, BTS's focus right now is clearly on continuing the world tour Erarang, which will carry on to more cities around the world after wrapping its European dates in Paris. Given the massive enthusiasm from fans across the globe, it's starting to look like a Grammy trophy simply isn't the main benchmark of success for this group anymore. So that's the full timeline behind BTS's decision to sit out this year's Grammy Awards. Not because they were disqualified, not because they lost some competition, but because of a firm stance against a new category they believe risks separating Asian music from the mainstream of the global music industry. On one hand, this can be seen as a bold move that sacrifices a real shot at their first ever Grammy win. On the other, it can be read as a statement of confidence from a group that has already proven itself through its own achievements. without needing to wait for validation from any single award show. Now it's your turn. Do you think BTS made the right call here? Or were you hoping they'd still compete this year? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like if this video helped you understand the full story, subscribe to stay updated on everything happening with BTS and the K-pop world, and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when there's a new development in this story. See you in the next video.